Today's session has two, or there's three areas that we're going to go over, kind of two main objectives of it. The first is to just go over a recap of the project scope. We just finished phase one after we had that big teacher convening. So kind of what the remainder of the project looks like. Section 2 is going to be specifically talking about your role as a consultant and kind of how you're going to be shifting from the teacher researcher role to the consultant role, and then what that entails. And then lastly, we're going to go through and talk about some phase one feedback. So thank you all for looking at that feedback deck. That's really helpful for us as a starting point. And then we're going to kind of go through and see if there's any other feedback that you all have on specific data collection tools, as well as the overall process, knowing that this was the pre-pilot for a pilot next year. Again, I just put in the chat a link to the note catcher. This has all of the links on there, and then space for you to take notes. So really the three main objectives of today's sessions are to understand where we're at in the project and where we're going, to understand your role during the remainder of the phases, and then to gather feedback on the first phase of the project, which was that needs assessment phase. So first, really quickly, we're going to do just a recap of the project. It feels like a long time ago, which was spring when we kind of rolled this out. So just want to kind of revisit it to remind you of that. So as a reminder, that first phase was that needs assessment phase. We started all the way back in March, and it kind of concluded at that teacher researcher convening. So this is when you went through, collected all of that data, synthesized your findings into that presentation, and then with your support, the district quality improvement team put together that long needs assessment that included data from all those different data sources. Now, using that needs assessment, we've moved into phase 2, where we're working to identify improvements. So right now, the district quality improvement team is working on creating a theory of action. So they've worked on identifying these root causes based on here is the needs assessment. These are the root causes we think are causing what we're seeing. And then they also identified the ideal state of this is where we want the district to be in terms of teacher time. Then they're kind of bridging the gap to say, what's a strategy that we can implement to bridge that gap? To say we're here, this is where we want to be. The theory of action really outlines that whole thing of this is where we're at, what we're going to do, and how we're going to get to that ideal state. So that's kind of the brunt of phase 2. Then phase 3 is really planning the action. So this is when we're creating an implementation plan, and that piece includes both a stakeholder engagement plan as well as a measurement plan. So ensuring that you have an implementation plan that is well thought out in terms of how we're going to be managing our performance and saying, are we making the changes that we said we were going to? And then 2, how are we going to keep everyone updated on what's happening? So again, we have already kind of checked on phase 1. We're kind of midway through phase 2. We're going to now kind of talk about what your role as a consultant now is going to look like during phases 2 and 3. So that's what is taking us into section 2. So when we think about what your role is going to look like, it's really shifting from a researcher to a consultant. So during the remainder of the project, during phases 2 and 3, you're going to be moving from more of doing the work to guiding others to do the work. So it's really a mindset shift from managing to influencing. It's also being a thought partner, not the sole problem solver, and then balancing expertise with facilitation. So specifically what that looks like is that you're going to be expected to attend and participate in the district quality improvement team meetings that are focused on these milestone deliverables. So these include that theory of action during phase 2, and then that implementation plan during phase 3. So you will attend, most likely it'll be 2 meetings It'll most likely, the theory of action will be in September when the team is reviewing kind of what they have drafted of that theory of action. And then probably around November, December, maybe it could be a little bit earlier than that, but to review the drafted implementation plan. And during those meetings, you're going to use this consultancy protocol that we're going to share here in a second to ensure that the teacher and teacher experience is represented in these milestone deliverables and kind of what is being proposed. So we're still having that, like, as a teacher researcher, you were really there to root us and to say, like, this is what the teacher is experiencing, making sure that it really is applicable. It's not just coming from like leadership down. It's all like, we're all on an equal playing field, and you're really giving us like that rich information from the teachers. And it's still going to be playing a similar role of making sure that these strategies are something that are going to be applicable and is going to work in the real world. So when we share out the consultancy protocol, Latanya, if you don't mind putting that in the chat. So as I mentioned, during those two meetings, you'll be expected to represent the teacher voice and experience, provide feedback on each deliverable that's constructive and actionable, frame recommendations in a way that aligns to district priorities and the overall teacher experience, complete a consultancy protocol, and then after the meeting, you will upload that protocol to the information hub. So the consultancy protocol is pretty high level. What it's going to ask is just when the meeting date was, the meeting purpose, and then the deliverable that was reviewed. So either the theory of action or the implementation plan. And then you'll just take notes throughout the meeting and after for a quick reflection point of, how do you think this will impact the teacher experience? What questions do you have? And these would be questions that you probably brought up during the meeting, ideally. And then any potential roadblocks or unintended consequences that you brought up during the meeting to kind of say, like, this is something we should consider when we're thinking about our master schedule redesign, for example. On the back of the protocol, there's some, or on the second page, there are some kind of prompts to help you think about questions and probing questions that you can be asking. And we're going to go over these as like core consultant skills in the next couple slides, but they're kind of summarized on the back of that sheet. So when you bring that to a meeting, if you're like, how do I start? Like, how do I think about this question? Or how should I be like really centering the teacher voice and teacher experiences? That's a good starting point. So the first core consultant skill is being an active listener and really leading with inquiry. So your role is to really help surface district assumptions and elevate the teacher experience and perspectives. Some examples of like prompts that kind of relate to this are, can I share how this challenge shows up in my classroom? What I'm hearing is X. Did I get that right? Could you walk me through how that decision plays out for teachers day to day? What I'm hearing is that PD is seen as a solution, but teachers feel it often takes away from planning time. Is that something you're seeing too? The next core consultant skill that we're going to talk about is clarifying and summarizing. So in this sense, your role is to support a shared understanding between district and school level perspectives, specifically thinking about that teacher perspective. So some example prompts for this are, so just to clarify, the main barrier is X. Is that correct? Let me summarize what I've heard so far from both sides. To make sure this stays grounded in teacher experience, I want to check X, Y, Z. And then another example, so the team sees meeting structures as a key issue, and the impact on teacher planning time is one of the biggest concerns. So again, it's kind of leaning in to have some prompts to lean into the clarification while also being able to say, this is what our teachers on our campus are experiencing. As a reminder, there'll also be 3 teacher researchers in these meetings, and you want to be representing the voice of each of your campuses, because this implementation plan and theory of action, again, is going to be a system level change. But we want to make sure that the teacher voice and teacher experience from each individual campus is represented in that. So it'll be really important for all of you, you're each obviously working together, but you're each representing kind of a different group to make sure that their voice is heard. The next skill is to ask open-ended, powerful questions. So in this, your role is to use open-ended questions to really spark reflection and ensure that the strategies that are identified will truly meet the teacher's need. And again, thinking about that at your specific campus. So some examples of this, what would this strategy look like from a teacher's perspective? A lot of times we're able to think about it from like a systems level. What will that look like differentiated by campus? How will this change help teachers use their time differently? What unintended consequences, what should we be mindful of? If this solution shifts duties to instructional coaches, how might that affect their capacity or relationships with the teachers? So again, just kind of drilling down to really think through kind of all the nitty-gritty on the ground details. And then this last core skill is building trust and credibility. Remembering that you're not just a guest at the meetings, you're a voice for all of your teacher peers. So some examples of how this is represented is teachers want this to work. We just need to be realistic about capacity. I appreciate how open this team is to teacher feedback. I want to make sure I'm being honest about what teachers really need to be successful. And there's real excitement about solving this, but trust will grow if teachers see their time being respected in the plan. So again, it's nice that the teacher researchers you all have been involved in this process since the get-go, because you've already been able to start to build that trust and like working with the DQI team, working with the DQI lead to build that relationship, and just knowing that you're all working in the same groundwork to help solve the problem related to teacher time. The last piece we wanted to kind of talk about is the difference between providing advice versus reflection. We're really, as a consultant, we want you to lead with reflection to center the system's change, while also sharing advice around teacher experience, because that really is where that value add is. You can push for reflection and then also be centering that teacher experience and teacher voice. So a reflection kind of prompt, for example, could be, what's the real root of this scheduling challenge? Whereas advice could be, when we tried a similar bell schedule change, it actually made PLCs less effective. A good balancing between that is anchoring your input in lived experiences, not just opinion. So again, that's where we're bringing in your real experience, your peers' real experience. Sharing if something like that has been tried, or maybe teachers have heard about other districts implementing it and they're excited about it. Be able to really share that lived experience to help guide that theory of action and then the actual implementation plan. So I just kind of went through very high level kind of what your role and responsibility is going to be during phases 2 and 3 of the project. Want to open it up to all of you to ask what questions you have about your role as a consultant through the remainder of the project, and how you see this kind of fitting in, or your role fitting into the project.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
So the protocol that you were referencing that we fill out after we attend meetings, is that one for all of us as a team, like the teacher researchers fill out one as a group, or we all fill one out individually?
Each individually.
Okay.
Yeah. And so just use it as like, it doesn't have to be formal by any means. Just kind of as a like jotting down afterwards, like taking 5 minutes after and just saying, these were the questions that came up. This is kind of what I'm wondering about based on the teacher experience, just kind of like using it as this is what stood out to me from that meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I'll also share that during the August, I had to think back what month that was, August DQI team training, we also shared an overview of what your new role as consultants is going to be looking like. So obviously the two team leads here know, but also the remainder of the district quality and team improvement team members know as well, that you all will still be, albeit it won't be as much of a lift on your part because you were so heavily involved in really leading phase one. But that's exactly why we still want your expertise during phases 2 and 3, because you were the one so in depth, like collecting that data. You're on the ground working in these buildings. So having your voice at the table before they're able to kind of like finalize these deliverables will be really important. Any questions from the DQI team leads?
No, I don't have any questions.
So just to clarify, so we're going to have our quality team meeting on September 5th, and we're going to present to you what our draft is of the theory of action. Then after we meet with y'all, then we would meet again to revise it, and that's when we would bring in the teacher leaders.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
after our district team with y'all, we would then have another meeting and bring them in September and November, you said?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
And just so my understanding, I can regurgitate this.
Mhm.
We're bringing our teacher expertise to their plan, and we are not shooting holes in it, but we're looking for, how this is going to work for the teachers.
Yep. Exactly.
And for my teacher researchers, I just want to remind you that you have access to phase 2 in the Temple Drive. And so if you want to look at what we're working on, you can, if you didn't get the link from the email I sent. But you can always look in there and just, have some heads up.
Awesome. That's great. And then I also wanted to share, Dr. Davis had a question. I may have missed you saying something about this, but last year we were told we would be looping around to gather more information during this time of year when things are really busy. Has that changed? If so, how will we get information from the teachers regarding this new information? So just to clarify, are you asking about how the teachers will be communicated about the new strategy that will be implemented?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Because last year, I mean, that plus last year we were told that we would be doing more of the timekeeping during a period of time when it was actually representative of what teachers are doing. And I didn't know if we were going to revisit that or if that was done and we're moving forward on this other.
Deborah, do you want to jump in at all?
Yeah, so I think that can be at the moment a local decision for you all if you want to try to run. So I guess make sure first I'm understanding what you're saying is where we're going back and running some of those data collection tools like time diaries and focus groups again in this fall to get another capture of data. Is that what you're asking, Dr. Davis?
That is what I was asking. It was based on kind of what the premise was last year. And I think maybe that's changed and I just wasn't caught up. I'm sorry for wasting your time.
No, you are fine. Yes, we did talk about that because we had so much feedback from you all and from the other districts doing this that the spring may not have given us the best valid data, especially in terms of observations. And so I didn't want to make that a requirement because it's not in the grant requirements for the grant money. And so that would just that's basically on you all to decide if you want to do that or not. We're happy to assist you all again if you need some help with just remembering some of the protocols. I can jump on a call with you, things like that, if any of y'all want to do that again. But in terms of just grant requirements, you do not have to.
Thank you. I trust our leadership they know what they're doing. So I'm going to just follow their lead.
And then also in regards to like communicating out the strategies and the work that's going to happen, In the implementation plan, it's going to be pretty detailed and it's going to have that stakeholder engagement piece. And we're going to be very specific of how is this going to be communicated out and at what cadence to teachers, to different staff members. How are they going to know what's happening, what progress is being made, how they can be involved, and so forth. So we want to be really intentional about that. And being able to loop back and say like, hey, do you remember when you did this time diary, when we collected all this data? You participated in a focus group. We heard what you were saying. This is what we're doing based on that. This is kind of like the pilot to see like, hey, is this going to work? And then we'll going into kind of that full scale implementation. So it'll be really important to share back again, what we learned and then what's being implemented because of that. Awesome. Any other thoughts, questions, clarifications about what your role is going to look like? No. And as always, we're always here. So if something comes up, you have a question, always feel free to reach out to our team, reach out to Deborah, reach out to your lead. Want to make sure that we're here to support you and that you feel empowered as you move into this consultant role. And now I'm going to hand it over to LaTanya as we go over some feedback.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. We want to thank you all for taking the time to share feedback with us. We're going to go over the feedback and then you'll have an opportunity to add to the feedback. So we'll just go over each question together as a group, and we would love for you, if you would like, you can voice over some of the feedback that if this is your feedback, if that's your response, if you want to voice over and say why you said that and kind of expand upon it, we want to give you an opportunity to do that as well. If you have not added feedback, no judgment at all, this is your time to add your feedback because we want to hear from all of you. We do understand that it's the beginning of the school year and we're all very busy. So it's okay if you did not add your feedback, but we want to hear it and this is the space to do it. So thanks, Alex, for dropping the deck. Can you go to the next slide, Alex? Because we're going to walk through this with you. So the section 1 is focusing on the focus group feedback. So we want to know about the actual experience that you experienced as it relates to the focus group feedback. So the first question that we want to talk about is how user-friendly was the data collection guide, the guide that Maya provided for you as you prepped for, executed, and analyzed your focus group data. We want to know how user-friendly the guide was. I don't plan on reading all of the feedback to you, but I would love if something resonates for you, if you want to voice something over, if you want to add something, please come off mute and let's talk about it. And if there's something that's like, oh yeah, I forgot to say that, but that resonates with me too, we would love to hear you echo it or +1 it so that we can know that it's stamped for more than one person. Anyone want to talk about some of the feedback that you see on the screen? I did appreciate the third comment that talked about how it was decently helpful. Go back for me, Alex. It was decently helpful and good to know about how it felt a little repetitive because we don't want it to be confusing. And so that really did stand out for me and really helpful. And talking about the jargon. So really appreciated that. Can you go back again, Alex, just in case somebody wanted to add to the guide? Anybody else want to add feedback about the guide?
I can add, well, or really just comment on what I was saying. I thought they were well planned out. I really appreciated the charts with the links. That was very helpful. I think my issue could be that I just I don't work in data analytics field very much. I'm an English teacher, so I don't even really like the protocol, you know. And so for me, clicking, like finding the different names, it took me a while to find the right document sometimes because I saw protocol so often that I didn't know exactly where I was, at least through later on in the process. There were just so many of similar titled documents that it got a little confusing for me. But overall, I think the guide was extremely helpful.
And thank you for that. I'm adding it to the document in real time. You won't see it here necessarily, but I'm adding it as you voice over. So thank you for that. Anyone else want to add something about this? So let's go to the next one. The next one is how did using Zoom to record and transcribe the focus group work for you? How could the overall focus group process be improved? This was, I know a lot of people were nervous about thinking about the Zoom and then recording live in person. And so really would like to hear your feedback about the Zoom. Anyone want to add to these comments?
I'll jump in. I think in the guide there was like a missed step as far as setting up the AI companion. That caused that I spent a lot of time trying to figure that out, and then having to re-record from my phone to Zoom was, that took some time. And then the transcript, when it came out through the Zoom summary, was it was all like one person speaking from the focus group. So, like, I know a focus group everybody should be in one room because that makes sense. But if you're gonna use Zoom, I think it would be better if they were in different rooms on their own devices. That way, when the transcript, when you're reading through the transcript, you can definitely see who said what, and it would just make it easier on the backside when you're going through and you're trying to like look for trends and things like that.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And so that's the second bullet that we were speaking about. So thank you for that, for voicing that over. Anyone want to echo or add another comment or speak to one of the comments that we have on the screen?
I actually very much agree with what he just said, because we saw the same thing in our transcript at our primary level. It looked like everyone that was talking was just one person. And so again, I had to go back and play in my mind, oh yeah, who said that? That was that one, based off what they said, because I know them, that kind of thing. So I agree that it would make it a little less tricky going back to look for, data and things if maybe they were in separate rooms, that kind of thing.
I also had trouble with that, and just the going back and transcribing it and figuring it out just took so much time. It was just time consuming.
Just a quick follow-up to that. So when you all say in different rooms, are you saying that you're thinking for the transcribing of it to have like a virtual focus group rather than an in-person? Okay, I'm curious. Do you think that would have, and you know your people, so like you doing it, a teacher researcher on a campus with your teachers and your peers, do you think a virtual you would get the same feedback and answers from your teachers as you did in an in-person setting?
I don't think we would. I thought the environment that was created with everyone sitting together really was amazing, and the ability that they had to jump on and off of each other's comments and think through what they were talking. It was just a wonderful experience, and while it was really hard to transcribe and really hard and really time consuming, I don't know that we would get the same information if we did it a different way, but that's just my thought.
No, thank you for the feedback. I'm curious if there is a Goldilocks world here where we can have them in person, but also get that transcribing that we need. And maybe Zoom's not the answer. Maybe thinking outside the box here and doing some type of other recording device. I'm not sure, but now I want to look into that. So what I'm hearing is transcribing is equally important as having an in-person focus group. So trying to find how we can get the best of both of those without losing that in-person feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd just like to add that the teacher researchers had snacks. They had a very welcoming environment for the teachers. And I just don't know how you can replicate that virtually.
I agree with that.
Right, because we all
And-
work for snacks. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Well, and I feel like it's also a different environment in person. I'm glad Deborah brought that up. But I do think that if you could find a way to record it a little bit differently to make the transcription process a little bit less time consuming, that would be really great. Yep.
I'm on the complete other side of that because I think once teachers start talking, I think that the conversation would open up, even if we are on Zoom. I think because they were all anxious to share. Like every focus group went over the allotted time, and that's only because we ended it. But I think they would still, want to share just as much if we're all on our own devices in our own rooms. Just my opinion.
And I think maybe something that we can look into, one, is finding a better way to transcribe that collects the different people. Like I know I've used something in the past where it's like person 1, person 2, person 3. So it differentiates based on voices. And then almost giving the option of, your teachers of who signed up for focus groups. Maybe you have one focus group that is virtual and then one that is collectively in one room, and kind of give that flexibility.
Okay, thank y'all for that. Let's go to the next question. The next one was around focus group. How relevant and appropriate were the focus group questions? The questions that were developed, what's your feedback on how relevant and appropriate they were? The first one said the focus questions were effective, but may not have captured all of the relevant information available. If someone can kind of come off mute and talk to us a little bit more about that thought, that would be helpful for me.
I think that was probably my comment, and I just felt like sometimes the questions maybe, well, and I'm having a hard time of remembering an example, but I remember thinking afterwards that we probably could have added even more helpful information, but the questions really, I mean, and I know they had to have a form or they had to have boundaries, but I think there was maybe some more that we could have gone a little bit away from some of the questions and gotten some more relevant information. And I'm sorry, I'm not articulating well. I've got a classroom full of kids, so apologies.
I get what you're saying, Dr. Davis, a lot. And I think these are either a hit or a miss in trainings of providing role-playing activities. But I think of being able to go through and like ask a couple focus group questions in pairs and someone like gives a made-up response, but then kind of you have like on the spot, like the ability to practice like probing and then being able to reflect after of like, what else do I wish I would have asked? How could I have phrased it in a certain way? I think that's like something that we always did in like when I worked at like a research institution of like practicing with the focus group protocol before to make sure that we were able to really get at that information, and then taking note of any probing questions that helped us kind of get at a different angle if it didn't come up naturally. What would your thoughts be on including kind of like that role-playing exercise?
I think that would be helpful. My concern in just stepping in and doing it is I didn't want to guide anybody or lead the discussion in a way. I really was trying very hard just to stay back so it wasn't my voice coming through, it was their voices, because I tend to talk too much.
Any other thoughts about the questions? I see the last response around how some of it felt repetitive. We can see that. Okay, so section 2 is the time diary. So the first question is, how did sharing this tool with teachers, how did sharing this tool with teachers to complete go? So what was the teacher's reaction to having to do a time diary? And then were there additional supports that we could have provided to help? So any additional thoughts that anyone would like to add in addition to these that are on the screen? Yeah, tracking time is difficult. It takes time to track time. Yeah.
And I think the question is like, how do we balance the tracking of time and like the ask that is, because it's a really big ask, but then also kind of the power also of the teacher being able to share, like, this is how I'm spending my time, and like it's a lot. Like, how do we balance that? Of it's hard. So trying to think even more creatively of, I'm seeing like teachers not dealing with spreadsheets. How can we even like make this even easier to complete for them? Knowing that it is something that ideally is completed like in real time, where you're like actually tracking it down. Is there any other kind of time like tools that any of you have used that we could kind of repurpose in a way for a time diary type data collection tool?
I'm reading the last bullet. Well, I'll wait to see if anybody has a thought to what Alex just asked.
I think that like with the spreadsheets, the data we got from it was super beneficial. Like it made it easy to see things and to connect things as we were going forward with the process. So I liked the end result of having it. I know at our district, like we like tried to give some time back to them. So if they were putting time in doing it, then we let them have like 3 early leave tickets. Like as soon as they were done with after school duty, they could leave if they turned them into the principal, trying to give some time back. And then we also did like a raffle drawing to encourage like, you know, some positive participation with it. And so, yeah, that's some of the stuff we did. I don't really know of any other time collection stuff. I'm sorry.
Nope, that's helpful. Okay, next question is, as it relates to the time diary, what feedback do teachers have about the use of the tool, and how can we make it better or easier for them to use? Kind of similar to the question before, but did any teachers say anything to you about it? Like, I hate this, this was hard, I wanted a video, I need a video, like anything that could help us as we think about moving forward to make it easier?
I just think, go ahead.
Well, in retrospect, I think I should have kind of had a little bit of a meeting to explain it. I shot it out to the teachers and said, hey, if you have any questions, feel free to email me back, or we'll come talk to me. And then I ended up answering a bunch of questions and a bunch of emails. So maybe a video from y'all, or, you know, or if we sat down and I had a short meeting with them, it would kind of alleviated some, you know, a lot of that. That would have helped. And then just the time they spent typing it into the spreadsheet was the negative feedback. They were all super interested in
Mhm.
sharing how they're spending their time. It was just that part was the kind of the drawback.
That's what I was hearing too, Raymond, and I agree. If I had done what you just proposed, it would have been a much easier go of it. It is tedious, it is time consuming, and I know that there were a couple of teachers that jotted their stuff down on paper because that was easier for them, and then I took it and put it in for them because they just weren't able. One of them was doing theater, and they just weren't able to make it happen. So it was a lot.
I also agree with that meeting idea. I did go around to each one individually to hand them like certain paperwork at that time. And I tried to chat with each one on our campus for like 5 minutes and see if they had any immediate questions. But doing that as like a group meeting would have been really beneficial, I think.
Yeah, I'm hearing that one, like almost a rollout video from us would be helpful. So then when you share it like with the tool in an email, you can just attach the video. And then I'm also thinking of like an ongoing FAQ document of when you all or we get questions about it, we add it to it at the response, because I know a lot of times you guys were answering the same questions over and over. So having kind of that sheet that the teachers could like bookmark to be able to say like, let me check here to see if someone has already asked that question.
Yeah. Okay, thank y'all for that. Next question about the time diary and the last. What did teachers think about categories included in the tool? Did we miss any categories? Were there any categories that were unclear that we should have captured?
And I think this kind of relates to our previous discussion, but I think almost having like on the FAQ document, an ongoing, like, I would
Mhm.
call it almost like a code book of this activity would be coded under this category. And then we can
Mhm.
continue to evolve that so that we have that valid data and we know everything's being consistently collected, knowing that upfront, we're not going to think of every single thing that a teacher does in their workday because what they do is endless. So it's just kind of consistently going and adding to it.
Mhm.
I agree with Alexandria because, my interpretation at my campus might be different than someone at another campus. And then that starts skewing the data different ways. So I definitely agree with what you said.
Okay, we're gonna move on to the observation tool. Did you feel that the data gathered through this tool was valid? If not, how can we improve the tool as it relates to the observation tool that you use for classrooms and PLCs?
I like the tool and it makes sense. The only problem is like when you are planning an observation, generally we're all on our P's and Q's and it looks good, it sounds great, it sticks to the script. And so it's not really genuine, it's not really the day-to-day. And I don't know how you get around that because in order for someone to go do an observation, it has to be planned and you have to have coverage for yourself and all like all those things. It kind of takes away the authenticity that we're trying to capture. Um, and the other thought was it being like somehow, a teacher doing a self-reporting on how like if they're spending time directly teaching kids and all that, but then it's self-reporting and there's all kind of, you know, interpretation that comes along with that too. So I don't have any answers here. I'm just, you know.
I somewhat agree with that. I do think the teacher instruction observations were really helpful to see just how interrupted their days are. that was crucial to our data findings, to see people coming in with tardies, principals coming to the door, you know, bathroom passes and such. So that was super helpful for us in our data. The PLCs, I agree. People are usually on target when they know that we're going to be taking notes on them. So that's a little iffy, but I do think PLCs need to be watched to some extent, because I mean, that's what some of the changes that we're making is because of the PLC observations, you know, that we saw.
How would teachers react? And this is just, I know it's going to be very different amongst each group, so I'm interested to hear responses about an approach if it was like during the week of September 5th, we will be coming in and conducting some, or during the like 2 or 3 weeks of September 5th through 21st, we're going to be conducting some random observations of PLCs. And then it's not like specifically planned, but they have some idea. How would staff in your building react to that?
Ours would be totally fine with it. They're used to people coming in and out of meetings and classrooms, so I don't really think that they would be bothered at all.
I think at this point, our PLC processes are changing quite a bit, that it wouldn't be as shocking to them because they do have instructional coaches in their I believe for the most part in departments, they have instructional coaches in there now. So that could be an option, just to leave it open, like there's probably going to be an observation between here and now.
I was going to echo off of Ms. Shower. We're so used to people coming in, visiting us all the time, that it would just be another person coming to see us. So it wouldn't bug us too much. And our PLCs have been changing, so it would be nice for people to watch, see what we're doing different.
And I think maybe that's, again, somewhere where we can provide potentially like some flexibility in saying like, let's talk about your district dynamics or your campus dynamics and what this would look like. Because it's also so hard because we're conducting a time study due to so many different interruptions in classrooms. And then we're coming in to interrupt like PLCs. And so want to be like really careful about that. But it's good to hear that there would be some flexibility, and maybe that's a place where we can provide some option of, if you think this is your campus culture would be okay with this, then maybe let's provide like a 2-week window and you randomly attend.
Yeah. Okay, second question around the observation tool. Would you suggest a different type of tool to get data on planning and instructional time?
I felt like this tool was really great for teachers because it didn't take time from them, but it still collected data that was super beneficial to the whole process. And so I felt like that was a win-win.
Thank you for that. Any additional thoughts? Okay, now we're on protocol feedback. So as we think about the protocol feedback, how long did the protocols take you to complete? Did you feel as though this time was worthwhile? So to the first point, that it's been so long you don't recall the details of the process. Do you have thoughts around like well, maybe you just don't remember the process. Maybe that's a good thing that you don't remember the process, but that means it wasn't
I
that
think
bad.
it's like childbirth. You just get through it and then you'll do it again later.
That's a good analogy, but Mr. Davis probably can't relate, but I think the moms on the phone can. Anything else? Any other thoughts as it relates to the protocol? Was it chunked well? Do you remember it being, the data being chunked well for you, to analyze, to understand? I have some yeses. From what I'm remembering, felt unnecessarily broken down into exhaustive tasks with too many steps and questions. Okay.
I don't recall exactly which piece it was, but yeah, it was one where it felt like we were re-answering the same question
Okay.
several times. I think towards the end when we were writing up our like the final report. But the whole situation, like for me and for the people that participated in the time diaries or the focus group, like the worthwhile part is like now, like they know, we know, they knew, but now the focus is on, you know what, I'm not gonna work so like I'm not gonna drag this out and work so much. Like I'm really cognizant of the time I spend doing stuff. So I'm grateful for that.
That's good.
As far as the protocols went, for me, it was a time-consuming process, but it was the part of the process where you really had to dig into all the data and try to put things together or see where they weren't lining up, which takes time anyway. But I felt like it was chunked in a way that you could move through the data you had collected and it was sequenced in the same way. So that was helpful, but it was definitely very time consuming. And then bringing the team together to go back through it and talk about everybody's thoughts took more time. But again, kind of needed because you want everybody's thoughts to be together. So
Yeah. So we're at the end. We just really want your overall feedback. What went well during the first phase of this project?
And just overall, I know we're
Yeah.
almost at time. So if there's anything like, I really would love to see this in the next iteration of like
Yeah.
phase 1 of this pilot, or I really hope that this is no longer a part of it. Anything that stands out to you.
I want to take a moment before we all jump off and just give a huge, huge thank you to all of you. Just want to remind everybody, you are the trailblazers. Like we made these and gave them to you pretty much right after we made them. And so I know y'all have given us so much feedback in this time, more feedback than probably any other pilot moving forward will give, because you are the starting districts. And so we are taking what you give us and what you say, and we are designing these tools with your input. So everything you've given us in this slide deck, I know it was probably a very large slide deck, but we are taking it and we are improving these tools starting in September all the way for the next few months. So super critical that we have this feedback for future districts that are going through this pilot. And for you all too, you know, if you want to go through it as well again, like now that you have all the protocols and the tools, they're there for you. So, but just want to say a big thank you. I know this is a huge lift for you all, not just the work itself, but all the feedback you are providing us. And we are just very, very thankful to have the real, like in the moment experience that you all gave us during this time.
And please know that we are taking all of your feedback to heart and like making direct changes based on it. So if there's anything else you think of, please like reach out, like act as a consultant to us as well. We want to know from your teacher experience, from your peers' experience, how can we improve this process so that it's even easier for other districts to improve?
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Coming up September 5th, the DQI team training, build your theory of action part 2. And then you do not have to attend that. That is for the DQI team. You do not have to attend that. The development of the theory of action is September 5th through the 30th, and then it's due on September the 30th. Your DQIT leads will loop you into the meetings that they will need you to attend. And meet with them, or you can reach out to them, as it says on the step, to meet with them to determine when you'll be joining the team meetings, and just ensure that you're scheduled to attend the meetings to discuss the theory of action in September, because they need your voices. And that's it. The exit ticket has been dropped in the chat. We appreciate your feedback. Please fill that out as soon as possible, and we'll see y'all again soon. Maybe, I don't know. I feel like we're breaking up, but we thank y'all so much for all of your hard work and all of the time and effort that you've put into this. So we'll see y'all again.
Yeah,
Thank you.
appreciate it so much. It's been so fun working with you all and just seeing how dedicated you are to your district and your campus, and making sure that your teacher voice is really reflected in this work has been so fun to see and just really empowering. And this has been my favorite project that I've been working on. So thank you for all of you. And I hope the beginning of the school year continues to go well for you all.
Yeah. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.